following is a conversation I had with my younger sister. Broadly, we discuss representations of the path of life, and specifically, we discuss movies, education, early careers, and we close with some general life and love advice. Thank you very much for listening or watching. And now I bring you a conversation with Julia Hoelzer. Hey. Would you introduce yourself?
Oh yeah, I'm Julia. I'm John's younger sister. Can't say I'm the best though because Jennifer's pretty great too. But
I
that's
would not
me.
make comparisons like that.
I'm just kidding. I know you love us both the most.
Yeah, I think that joke is often made with respect to children. Like we all know I'm mom and dad's favorite. I wonder about, like, 'cause Gabby and I are thinking about, not anytime soon. We're not pregnant right now, but in a couple of years, having kids and starting a family. So I don't know. I definitely need to think about not having a favorite kid.
Well, and I feel like I was the youngest. I might have used that the most to poke fun, especially like with the grandparents. I spent so much time with them. I'd be like, I'm their favorite grandchild, or like because I spent also probably the most time with the parents alone. At the end of like you guys all going to college, be like, oh, everyone knows I'm their favorite, and so I've never actually thought about before if there was a reason I did that. I never felt like it was a harmful narrative because I know that they love us all.
Is it helpful to even psychoanalyze it that much? I think it's just something that young people do.
Probably.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So this is my second interview today. Yeah. And second interview ever. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For being willing to be up here.
You're my brother, and I love you.
I appreciate it. I love you too. So I've expressed that what I want to talk about is representations of the path of life. What your thoughts are on, self-conception and growing up and becoming an adult and realizing that you have a place in the world and your relationships. And I want to talk about, maybe our lives as siblings and with our parents, if you want, or we can talk about, I also would be interested in talking about work, your thoughts on relationships or work or growing older. I started with Mom this morning too with this question because I have kind of a little path I want to go down.
Yeah.
And then we'll just see where we go.
Okay.
So are you ready for the first question?
I'm ready.
Did you see the Barbie movie?
I did.
What did you think of the Barbie movie?
Well, it's funny because I grew up in like the animated Barbie films, and I knew this wasn't what it was going to be.
Like the Princess and the Pauper.
Right. It wasn't a live action of that. It was the idea of what does Barbie mean to people. And I guess I kind of liked that because I grew up like playing with my Barbies, and I really liked making characters and lives for them. So the idea that there's different variations of Barbie, Ken, etc., except poor Alan.
There's only Alan.
There's only Alan. Like I did
Which
that.
I never heard of Alan before.
Me neither. Because that
movie.
that was way before our time.
Yeah.
So but like I made characters and identities for my Barbies, so to see it like represented on screen, like that was kind of touching what I enjoyed as a child. And also just it was fun and playful, and the songs, were good.
Do you remember the scene near the end of it was really her transformation sequence where there's the whole climax of drama with, I think, Will Ferrell and his crew in Barbie Land, and then the creator of Barbie, I think, is that the character, the creator, the older lady who's in the room and then comes and takes Barbie by the hand, and they sort of walk away, and then they end up in this like glowing ephemeral, mystical space, and then she like takes her by the hand and is like kind of there's this montage
of people,
of real people, right? You recall, yes. There's like parents holding their children, or children playing, or people in a relationship looking at each other, or that is an example I would draw to as an example of a representation of the path of life. I found that of the whole movie, that was the part where I probably felt the most emotional. I think my wife teared up a little bit. I think she cried during that scene.
Well,
so you remember
song
that
too. Like, what was I?
That was the Billie Eilish song,
yep.
too. I think is when it played, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Which only adds to, like, what am I made for? I think that kind of played into, like, that montage of
it's asking the question and answering the question visually at the same time. Yeah. Yeah. So, tell me, I have an analogy I want to make with that representation, that scene, to the only other place, and I've been thinking about this a lot and struggling, that I see something similar, and I don't want to go down like a rabbit hole here, so I will be very precise. I'll try to be.
Yeah.
Is in like stained glass windows in churches or in Catholic chapels, churches.
Yeah.
Where they show the nativity through like the Passion and the Crucifixion. You know, that basically the Jesus story.
Which is coming up because Easter.
It's right. Yeah, right. Maybe that's why I'm thinking about it. It's that is also in a different way a representation of the path, in this case of a life. It's this whole story in imagery. I'm not trying to make more of a point than I think there's a structure there that when I engage with it, I get like super interested. I think it's really interesting. I don't know exactly why. Do you agree that there's parallels there between like stained glass window images of the nativity to crucifixion story and the montage of people and their families in the end of the Barbie movie? Or do you think that's just totally far-fetched?
Well, I feel like the one thing about when we think of like the Passion of the Christ is that when we hear it now, they tell it beginning to end. There is a story there. And so you see life through Jesus, and like being persecuted for it. So I guess maybe in the way of like how his life from beginning to end, I can view that as montage, not necessarily just the Passion or like the crucifixion. I don't know exactly to answer your question.
That's fine.
I guess I personally don't see. When you were talking, I actually had a different like example in mind.
Please, yeah, what came to mind?
Did you ever see Soul on Disney?
No, I haven't seen Soul. I haven't really kept up with many Disney or Pixar movies after like WALL-E. I mean, I've seen Encanto.
That's another good one of representation of life, though.
Yeah.
And kind of like generational trauma. That's a different subject for that movie. But
tell me about Soul.
What's Soul? So I actually only watched it because my boyfriend had me watch it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found so interesting with that movie is that the main character is looking for like his purpose in life, and he always believed that his purpose was to play the piano on a stage for the world to see. And then he dies.
Well, I assume before that can happen.
Yes, and he tries to get back to life, and there's this whole concept that we're all souls, and that these souls travel to Earth and become babies and live their life. He runs into a soul who doesn't want to go to Earth. And they kind of, long story short, get sucked back into Earth together, but the soul ends up in his body, and he ends up in a cat's body. So he has to try to get them back to switch bodies. Which is sort of absurd. Yes. Right. But the idea is his one thing in life, he believed his one passion in life was to achieve this goal, and then once he got there, that would be it. Except throughout the relationship he had with the soul who never wanted to go to Earth, we see that soul eating pizza and loving it. Like, I didn't know this was so amazing. Or when one of his students, because he was a teacher, came to his apartment and the soul had to act like him in his body. And they were talking about how much they loved playing the trombone and how music impacted their lives. And I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep playing. Going and seeing those experiences with someone from like innocent, fresh eyes made our main character realize that life wasn't just about this one passion he believed, because he hadn't been living his entire life because he never achieved that one goal. But it was never about achieving the goal. Through working as a teacher, through eating pizza, through all of those things compiled together like what his life was. And it wasn't just about achieving this one passion, but he thought it was. And so he didn't start truly living until after, he ends up back in his body. He goes back to loving teaching, so he doesn't actually die. And realizing that was what made his life meaningful. So maybe it's more of like appreciating all the things around you, like eating the pizza, crying, inspiring another person. It wasn't just about, I have to be this jazz musician on a stage playing piano.
Are you very familiar with meditation. Have you ever tried meditating before?
I've never not tried meditating.
I've tried, but I'm not like a avid meditator.
Yeah.
But that sounds, especially with the pizza example that you said, where you're like, one of the pivotal moments was when the character that didn't want to go back to Earth noticed how wonderful eating pizza was. That sounds sort of parallel to an idea that I think whenever I hear people who are presumably good at meditating and trying to convey to people who are trying to get into it, what they should be gearing towards, there's an appreciation or like there's just noticing and being aware of the thing that's going on right at the moment. Not even the thing that's going on, but like all the sensations you're having. Just being aware of it. And it sounds like sort of similar, like when you're focused on a goal. That's sort of the antithesis.
And that was all he saw.
You're thinking about the future. You're thinking about something you're trying to accomplish, a place you're trying to go. And it's by definition not here presently. It's not here yet.
And so you miss everything else that happens between then and now and then.
Yeah.
Which I found really interesting, just because like once he achieved it, it was like, what's next? He thought that was what gave his life meaning, but it continues on after that. So kind of having lost that journey up to the point of like achieving that major goal, you lost experiences and time with people and emotions. And like you said, like all the things around you that are happening that you don't really take in like sensationally. So yeah, that's when to your original, that's exactly what I was thinking. You thought Passion of the Christ and I thought Soul, but that was just, when you said that, that's the first thing that came to mind was like seeing life through someone else's like innocence.
So would you say that movie was a good movie? Did you find it compelling and entertaining?
Yeah, definitely.
You did? Okay. I think there's something there too that, and this is all hypothesis, and I want to talk with people and see what they agree. That stories that have that element, whatever it is that we're trying to discuss, they're sort of inherently captivating. Like they're really interesting. They're emotional. Because and I don't know exactly why we relate to them or we see something about them that triggers memories, maybe for people who have really good memories. But they're also captivating. I mean, it's a kids movie, right?
Yeah.
Was it for kids or was it for adults?
No, I would argue that almost all Disney movies they're visually for children, but when you go into the core of like the what they're speaking on, it's for adults.
Why do you think children who can't conceptualize the meaning behind some of the messages in the film like we ostensibly can, are captivated yet by these kinds of films?
Well, like, see, like, you're like for this one, for example, when I said like mention the pizza thing, the soul was like a young soul, so it kind of represents like what a child would be in a human's body. And when you watch that and like they're eating a piece of pizza, it reminds you of the time that you eat your first piece of pizza. Like that's relatable across ages. So I think like those like little things are really good at drawing in children, and of course the animation, the visual narrative that they are sharing, I think is what captivates a younger audience. Because like those deeper meaning things really can only be taken in if you're an adult, I think. Not to say that children aren't intuitive and aware, but like think about like that he had to die for him to realize that like life was meaningful outside of this one goal. I don't think a child would be able to articulate that necessarily.
Hopefully we don't all have to go through that journey.
Yes. And so visually speaking, I think plays a really big role in that, but also including things that would span across ages, like the pizza. There was a cat, and cats bring a lot of joy to people, like those kind of things. So it's, I think, still finding ways to connect the movie with the child while having adult themes.
Okay, so now where I want to go is I want to ask you a set of questions that explore specific aspects of the path of life. Say a little bit about where you're at in life right now first, and then I'll ask my questions.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm fully working now. I graduated school last year, and I got a job right away as an academic advisor. So my daily routine, for the most part, except during downtime, is, working with students and finding things that fit their needs while also maybe being a little more stern sometimes. We got to make sure we keep you on track from an academic standpoint, but a lot of it is also like emotional and like mental awareness and safety as well in my role. So, I mean, I work with people every single day, which can definitely drain a social battery sometimes coming home, but I find it work that I'm happy with. Working directly with people every day, and I'm in a really nice work environment with my team. I like to describe us all as like same text, different font.
I think I've heard you say that before.
Yeah, we had so similar interests, and like I don't feel that our age gap in any way impedes the relationships that we can have. And also, we all do a very similar good job with our students, so I just felt very welcome and embraced. And I will be an academic advisor for a full year on June 1st, so we're getting there.
Okay, almost to your anniversary.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple months.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What advice would you give to someone considering going to college?
My kind of viewpoint on college is that it should be, and because it's not always available to everyone, but not necessarily that it's meant for everyone. So when talking with someone and learning more about their journey and maybe what's leading them to why they want to go to school, it changes the way that I give advice. I think it is kind of on an individual basis. Cause going to school is more than just getting your degree. It's also the financial burden that you have to take on to get there.
Spending a lot of money, and time.
And I feel like, we were really lucky that we were able to, but I know that that's not every person's case. Mm-hmm. So if, like, say you were sitting in front of me and you came from a family that, like, thought that going into education was really important and you should get your degree to be successful, we would talk a little bit about your personal goals and talk about, if you're in this degree, where would you find yourself, once you graduate in 4 years? Because that's only part of the journey is going to school. And if it ultimately didn't make sense for like your life goal, and sometimes also in the immediate, maybe it's not, you can't financially manage it, you don't want to be away from home, there are other factors at play, then you don't have to go like on a right away. Some people need to and want to go and work. But if your goal is to never go to school, that's okay too. And in working in the field of like being an advisor, I would never tell somebody to stay just because.
Mm-hmm. When I started, I didn't have good answers to that question. I knew that physics was interesting in high school, and I started as a physics major because I was like, okay, I'm assuming that I'm going to school, and this is what was the most interesting thing for me in high school, so I'm going to pursue that.
Yeah.
And then my first physics class was quantum physics because I had taken physics 1 and 2 as dual credit in high school. And it was really hard, especially the lab. The lab was harder than the lecture. And also, I was living on a floor in my dorm with a bunch of people in engineering who, what they were doing was also seemed difficult, but they seemed to really love it.
Yeah.
I didn't really love what I was doing with physics, and I got totally sucked in by touring their buildings and seeing what equipment and the labs and experience they had available. Important. There's a lot of money in engineering at Iowa State for sure, and I just it was partially a parasocial thing. I mean, I really enjoyed their company, and I was like, oh, if they can do this, and they seem to be struggling but thriving.
Yeah.
I don't know if that comes across.
Yeah.
Working hard. And enjoying what they're doing, I was like, I would like this too. I think I would like this too. It applies things that I've come with, so there was not a huge barrier to entry since I had the prerequisites for a physics degree.
Yeah.
To go to engineering, I was still able to graduate in 4 years, which was lucky.
And that's maybe what I would say is that you were going into a field also that related to your existing interests too, and like skills and abilities.
Applied, essentially.
Yes, entirely.
Applied.
So I think.
Do you see a lot of that in your job?
I see a lot of students
changes that are sort of close, proximal to what they are changing from, or do you see like wide gaps in major changes?
I think in the major change, since I actually work with engineering students, I often see them going into a related field that maybe utilizes less math because they like the idea of like hands-on or like design and production, but not necessarily want to be tasked with the mathematical component. So we see a lot of major changes in our own college from like mechanical to an engineering technology degree, which uses less math. It's more hands-on. I've seen students leave engineering entirely and go to like they want to do like graphic design because they found out they rather enjoy being on like the paper or a computer doing the design feature rather than, again, like the math, the physics, the circuit analysis, the like all the other components that go with like engineering. They wanted to utilize the one thing that they enjoyed the most but in an entirely different, like unrelated degree. Whereas we do have a lot that like the degree, but they don't want to use as much math. But to the same point, though, we do have some that just leave entirely and go into like sports management or something like that, where they just realize that their not only their skill sets but their interests and wants didn't align with what the degree and then the future career outlook gave them.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Which is encouraged too. I mean, like, find what you want. You're spending money here at school. You should do it towards something that you're going to enjoy. And I think part of my job when I'm working with those students is, yes, you go to your college and we won't be speaking anymore, but I can help you get to that point, direct you who to talk to, provide you resources on campus. Maybe you want to come back and meet me again and talk about what engineering would be like if you did stay. But if not, building that like connection, because it's so easy to be siloed from each other within different majors, but to have like
we use that term at work. Referring to teams not communicating well.
Yes, so I think
having the same goals, siloed.
I think what's nice is that my goal is to bridge the gap there, which makes major changing hopefully a little bit easier on the student.
Professionally, what's maybe something or a few things that you've learned while you've been working?
I think I've learned to be a little more stern, which is a good thing for me because I tend to be just very like open and welcome and like I'm willing to be flexible with you, which is really important in my job. But it's equally as important that I hold my ground and be, I don't want, stern might not be the right word, but like I'm professional. I'm always professional. But what I mean is that our program is based on like prerequisites, and so if you don't follow this exact order, you're going to be spending more time here. It is just the fact
of the matter that this is the consequence.
Correct. Yeah. And sometimes when students get frustrated by that, I think it could be really easy to maybe, I don't want to say give in or be a little more flexible. Like, oh, if we change one thing, maybe it won't change too much. Whereas I feel like I've gotten to a point where I've been able to say, no, this is what you need to do. I understand and hear where you're coming from. But if you don't do this, these are the consequences. So being clear and informative and like holding my ground is a good thing for me to learn, not only like professionally, but be able to apply that in my personal life as well. So that's been a really nice impact for me. I also just like, I feel like I challenge my brain too, because when I look at these degree paths, it's a puzzle. I have to figure out how to make these schedules work for 130 different students. So I feel like I feel like my brain is working out too when I'm doing this, which sometimes at the end of the day I get tired, but when I'm in it, I'm like, I feel challenged and rewarded, and I feel like my brain is at the high capacity of what it can be in like growing. So those are two things that I've really come to appreciate and like about my new job and being only a professional in the field now for almost a year.
Can I ask you, do you find a lot of meaning and fulfillment out of work?
Yeah. I like to know that I'm helping somebody. Because you can help everybody as much as you can, but when you have the student that comes to you and says like, thank you, you made a difference, then I know I've done something right.
And that's, you've had that experience? That sounds really nice.
And well, it was weird. There was a time that I had actually like made a mistake earlier on in my like last summer, I would say. So I had to fix it really quick. And I did, and the student told me that they really appreciated that I was upfront with them. I kept in touch with them. I notified them of every update in the process of getting the situation fixed. And then at the end of that, even though it was a mistake that I had made, they told me how much they appreciated me and how much I'd really helped them. Because
that's got to be gratifying.
Very much so. And because like even when I made a mistake, I solved it well, I guess is the way to put it. In fact, that I think what students really want from their professionals sometimes is like updated and like communication. Like we can't do that all the time or else we'd be burnt out forever. But for the times that are really necessary, being transparent and honest is the best way to go. And I built a relationship with a student where it could have gone wrong.
Would you agree with this generalization that finding oneself in a new environment often exposes within oneself strengths and weaknesses, and then we sort of necessarily expand our capabilities to meet the bar that we're being asked to reach? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that I had to grow to meet the challenge of working in a specific field. This time it's engineering. If I ever got a different job, it'd be a different field. I have to kind of go through all of that again. So I feel that I walked in with a good skill set, but the abilities and knowledge that I'm gaining now will continue to help me as I keep moving forward through my career. And I think that will always happen.
Something I'm really focused on with my time at work right now, a skill to develop, is being articulate. I mean, I have been in the same role for somewhere between 3 and 4 years. And in that time, we've had members come and go. And as of right now, we have, I think, 2 or 3 newer members on the team that I've had the opportunity to train. And then separate to that, I sometimes give report outs to decision makers, like a leadership team who's, based on the scope of a project, will decide how it's going to go. I'll provide recommendations, but as a group, we'll sort of pick the path forward. The skill that I'm currently really focused on and trying to get feedback on, and this is a part of what we're doing right now, is just being articulate, just being able to speak in a way that directly reflects what I think. I mean, there's no room for I don't want to lie, sounds so dramatic, but I don't mean lying. I guess I mean like having a significant gap between what I believe to be true and what comes out of my mouth. You know? Like, and that gap can be because of misinformation. It can be because of misconception. It could be because I didn't do due diligence of research on something, but then I have to speak about it, and you might have the reflex to like fluff what you're presenting on. So I've been really working on being a better communicator. Is that something that you find in your work? Like, do you have a similar experience to that, or?
Well, my entire job is communication.
Sure, and only this one aspect of mine is really.
From where I started wanting to originally be in HR, then going into higher education, my entire academic career has been how to communicate. So maybe that's just the type of that comes just naturally. Not that I still can't learn and ways to be more articulate, that's for sure. But I don't think that I necessarily think about that often because it's what I do. Sure. It just is.
Yeah, it's like speaking your native language. It's like if I were to talk with you about what's it like to speak in Spanish, which I'm not a fluent Spanish speaker. I mean, I can do bits, versus speaking English. I'd probably say the same thing about being articulate applied to this second language. But then if you ask me what's my experience of speaking English, I just do it. It's what I've always done. Yes. It's what I can do. It's the thing that I know and understand. Sure. I think that's good for work. Is there anything else you'd like to say about what you do, about work?
I just really like what I do. I like the team that I work with, the students that I work with, the college that I work with. It provides a lot of opportunities for me to grow and develop, and I just love it.
Can I ask you a antecedent question?
Sure.
What is it? I mean to say about something in your life that came before. Is that antecedent or is antecedent posterior?
I do not know.
I'll just ask. So what was the motivation to study what you studied and to enter this career space as opposed to something else like sports management?
Well, what do you mean, going to higher ed or
Yeah. So what was your bachelor's degree in?
Human resources.
Why did you what was the motivation to study human resources?
So, I mean, I guess it was always just, I wanted a career where I continue to work with people. And then when I got into the field, I do things like writing my resume, interviewing, helping other people do those things. But while I was a student and getting my bachelor's degree, I was also the friend that helped everyone else plan their schedules. I would do it on an Excel file, and they'd each have their own sheet. And we'd sit down with them, and I'd help them plan their classes. That was maybe the first one. And then I had a really great academic advisor who I really enjoyed. But I think the real step that brought me from HR to higher ed, even though there's so much transferability between the two careers, because I'm helping people in their collegiate, go from college to a career, whereas before I'm helping them get into their career so I guess I just like that. But going into higher education, there was a point when I was my bachelor's degree where an HR rep had come into one of our classes and talked about how one thing they really enjoyed was firing people. Oh, and I
that's certainly
that turned me off a little bit. And I felt that didn't align with what I wanted out of the job. And not that I was going to be that exact person, but that was okay. And then I just felt my goals for life, I felt were appreciated more outside of business and aligned more in education.
I don't know if I've ever told you this, but once in a meeting with a potential a third-party business partner, they said, I'm passionate about hardware as like part of their sales pitch for what we were discussing. And then I've just never forgotten that. It's stuck with me, like that someone, depending on the path you choose, someday you could become someone who says something like, I'm passionate about hardware.
Yeah.
Or I really enjoy firing people.
How'd you get there?
How did you get there? Yeah. And so it gives me the perspective of, the time to think about who you want to become is always now. It's always yesterday or a year ago. It's never too soon.
I agree.
So if you see yourself on a path that's going to lead you to become a certain person or have a certain life, and you're happy with that, I think fulfillment is there. I think tranquility and peace comes from having a positive perception of the likely future. I think there's also I don't want to get too far off the rails. I think also a part of peace and tranquility is dismissal of the future in favor of acceptance of the present. Mm-hmm. So I think those maybe are both true and separately. But yeah, I don't even though I enjoy what I do, and I can see myself doing engineering for quite some time longer, I don't want to become the person that says I'm passionate about hardware.
Yeah.
In 20, 30, 40 years. I don't know. I don't see that as like a locus of meaning, of really deep meaning down the road. But not to disparage them. I didn't get to know them that well.
No,
I'm sure that it was part of their sales pitch and they're a perfectly fine person. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you said it's like someone who says they enjoy firing people. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they were a perfectly fine person and they might be really good at their job, but that was just a statement that never resonated with me and then happened to help me look elsewhere into a profession that I really like.
Can I segue into
definitely
talking about love?
Yeah.
A little bit. Would you be happy to talk about?
I can talk about love.
Okay. I will express my motivation. So, as you know, I've had girlfriends. Not like a lot of girlfriends. I was not a playa. All right.
No, he was not.
She says, looking right into the camera. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Oh, that's out of the way. But I always knew from probably a very young age, even though I used to tell our parents, I'm never getting married.
Yes.
Girls are gross. I'm never going to get married.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still think it's true that I knew, because I had kid crushes.
Yeah.
I knew for a long time that at some point in my life that would be the case, that I would be searching for, and the hope that I would find love in my life. And I've mentioned that I got married last August.
Yay.
To Gabby.
We love Gabby.
We love Gabby. We love you, honey. To the camera. For me, there was a notable moment. It was in like December and January of, I want to say 2020. 2020.
No,
2019 to 2020.
Oh, this is pre-Gabby?
Maybe it was 2020 into 2021.
You met Gabby in 2021.
Right, and I think it was the winter before that. So 2020 to 2021. Yep, thank you.
You're welcome.
Where I realized I was just suddenly very self-aware of my behavioral patterns, thought patterns. I mean, here's what I was doing. I would go to work. I'd wake up early, go to work early, finish work early, come home, exercise and eat, and then play video games till like 10 o'clock at night. And that sounds like a really fine weekend sort of day, or like Friday,
Yeah.
But for me it was every day for an extended period of time. And I realized that if I continue to pour significant amounts of my time outside of work, because work is sort of a necessity, I mean, for the establishment of 8 hours life a
day there.
Yeah, if I spend all my time after that just throwing it into machines for fun, that I was never gonna find somebody and fall in love, which is this thing that I've always known would be important to me.
Yeah.
So I still will play video games. I don't have like the stance that I should cut them out of my life.
You liked it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's been something that I've done for a long time, and I play with my friends. I mean, I play video games. That's sort of there's a social aspect to it. But I ramped down, and I started going on dating apps. It was sort of still COVID restrictions, if not mandates, at least socially, like culturally, there was a sense of it'd be harder to meet people in person. And then I met Gabby on Bumble 4 to 6 or 8 months into that whole process.
Because it was like June or July.
Yeah. So in those winter months, there was a reflective process, and I made an active decision that I needed to be different to find love. And then within a year of running this experiment, I've met my wife. And we've since started building our life together. That's the story I wanted to share. And now I want to ask you, what is your conception of that? Do you think that love finds its way into your life by accident? Do you think that we have to be intentional about looking for it to find it, or that makes our chances better? Do you think that it's something that is good for everyone? Do you think, tell me in response to that narrative, how you think about love? I'd love to know.
I mean, the cliche is definitely that love will come to you when you're not trying too hard for it. I think that's the narrative that I've heard the most. Not to say because you went on a dating app, so you started the journey. You had to take effort to get it going, but it eventually found its way to you. I mean, it wouldn't have happened if Gabby hadn't joined the app either. Mm-hmm. And it was unintentional. You were in the same radius of people, so it just kind of happened. I wouldn't, because you didn't go out searching for her. You were searching for this idea of what ended up being her.
Yeah, there was a hope that it would be possible. Yeah.
And I do think that it will come when you're ready and looking for it. You have to be looking for it, I think, for it to come to you. But it doesn't necessarily require I'm going to go on a date every single day until I find my person. Yeah. I think you have to be wanting to put in the effort for it to come. So maybe it's giving off energy and hope into the universe for this thing that you really want, and then it'll eventually come to you. So when it was your case, it was 8 months later, or whether it was somebody else who was 2 years later, and suddenly there's this new person in our life that it was the love they've been looking for, I think it will happen. Mm-hmm. But you have to be open to it.
What would you say specifically to someone who wants to find love but doesn't believe they have it? What advice would you give?
I mean, what I'm saying to you, be open to it. Because only through even the chance of accepting it will it come to you. I think it's easy to be, and I would be hypocrite that I didn't feel these things at some point in time, just in your own head and insecure and wondering if it's ever going to be that person that you've been hoping for, and then that discourages you from looking.
I noticed that your answer is at the level of beliefs. It's how we think about it. What's your belief about it? Can I press you on maybe specific actions that someone can take? I mean, what would your advice be?
Oh, specific actions.
Yeah, I guess, no, I didn't. Not to dismiss your answer, but to extend it.
I mean, level of, because funny enough, both of our stories, for example, were because of a dating app. So we were comfortable.
It's very different from our parents or our grandparents.
Right. We were comfortable going on online dating to find someone that we would like to be our partner. Mm-hmm. That I wouldn't just say to someone to go do that if they weren't comfortable and ready for it. Because I think you have to be ready to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. So I think the first step is self-reflection.
I agree.
Because you said it yourself. I know I went through a very similar journey of reflecting on what I wanted and what I was willing to accept at this time, when it did eventually happen for me. And so you have to reflect on who you are and what you want and what you aren't necessarily willing and wanting to do when searching for a partner. And then there's so many different modalities of doing that. I mean, if you want to go on a dating app, great. If you want to try it walking into a bar or being set up by a friend or just meeting new people, maybe this friend turns into a relationship, you have to find what you're comfortable with, because there's no one right answer, I think, to finding your person. There's so many ways and so many individual stories how people have. I mean, mom and dad find each other in a classroom.
Yeah. My parents met in a classroom. Yeah.
So even that way,
and not in high school. I mean, that'd be the additional point, because I think there's a image of high school sweethearts that people are familiar with. So it's kind of interesting that they've and it wasn't even in their undergraduate.
It was
college.
They were both in a graduate class that they had to take that was required for teaching. Right? Teaching. Yeah, by their school said you have to go back and do this, I think. Mm-hmm. And they were happened to sit next to each other one day, and they got tests back, and like talking about their scores is what led to where we are today, right? So it's like
we can forgo the funny comment.
Well, I wasn't, but yes, I wasn't planning on saying that.
Of. Let's let them share that if they want.
And it's just like through that led to you and I talking here right now. Mm-hmm. So there's no one right way to start. It has to start with you.
Mm-hmm. That was my experience. Yeah, that it wasn't until I decided that I could give up some of who I was becoming, to become someone else, that it then became possible. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We actually had a very similar timeline. I don't know if you knew that, because that was, COVID was 2020. That fall was a long fall. Going through wintertime, I joined Bumble in January, and the next, like my first or second day,
I wonder what population level statistics we can find about that. Like, I'm sure
coming out of COVID,
because there's there's Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, others, I'm sure. I wonder what statistics they have as far as like level of people who started and left the app over certain those months.
Well, because I feel like we were alone. We were by ourselves during this time. Like that, I was forced to have to do some reflection. And I do like reflecting, but I was in a time and place where I just did, and I could, because we were all at home. Classes were online. I didn't leave my apartment unless my roommate and I were going shopping. So it gave the time and space for it. And I actually, when you were saying that, I was wondering, like, who else experienced that? Because we were in a pandemic. So you and I have a very similar timeline. I know I met my partner a little bit earlier, but mine was also like December, January at that time is when I decided that I was ready to put myself out there and to find a partner.
I think a lot about being a better husband. I don't think I'm a bad husband, but I think it's worth spending some time thinking about, how to be a good one, how to do better. What advice would you have for me and Gabby as we were thinking about how to have a good marriage and a good life?
I actually wrote this. I think it was at Gabby's wedding shower. There was like you had to write a piece of paper, like, what advice do you have for the happy couple? Yeah. And I said, keep dating.
Keep dating? We went through those. I know exactly what they were on the slips of paper.
Yeah. Yes. And I said the keep dating because even though you're married, what was different about your relationship from the day before you got married to the day after? I obviously like legal things and etc. But I mean, like in the quality of your relationship and like what were you gonna do the next day anyway? So I just feel like keeping dating and like continuing to learn and grow, because now you're going through these new phases of life. Like Gabby's going to be in school, she's going to graduate, you might want a family someday if you change your career. Like, you as individuals will change, and so the relationship has to continue to grow and change with it. So I just like the idea of like keep dating, like going on a date night, going to the movies, sitting at home having like a picnic in front of the TV. Just like the little things should like that is still like that love is still there. Mm-hmm. I don't think I had to change after getting married. So I think it's kind of nice.
That is like the most common question that we got asked in the month after we got married.
Really?
People were like, how do you feel?
What's changed?
How do you feel now that you're married? Yeah. Happy?
Like, thank you, Gabby.
Very similar. Yeah, I'd just like to say, really appreciate my wife for showing up that day. Thank goodness. No, that's not usually what I would say.
So I was the person who wrote keep dating, if you ever remember going across that.
And it's funny that some of the responses were so different. There was a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I recall that. There were others like some cliches, I think, like don't go to bed angry. Yeah. You've probably heard that.
I like that one.
I think there was one person who was very specific.
Really?
Like, there was like a little list. Like, you should do this every so often, this every so often, this every so often. There's like specific action.
The only qualm I have with that is that individual relationships are individual, and so not all tactics work for the same people. Just one thing to consider.
Can I ask you a little bit about beliefs and values? Okay. So the question I wrote down that I came with was, what belief, if held, or actions, if taken, do you think would be the most beneficial for individuals to have the best chance of living a happy and healthy life?
I feel like this is so cliche. I'm so bad. I'm always full of cliches. It's about the little things.
Okay.
Like when I watch The Bachelor on Hulu Tuesday after it releases. That contributes to my like happy life. It like brings me joy outside of work for example. To find joy is like in like every aspect of your life, in the little things about your life. Like at work when me and my coworkers like friends, so we'll talk about friends. Like take a break from the job, or when I'm in the job, when I'm talking with students. So I guess the things that lead to my happy life is the belief that, or value that you should appreciate the little things.
Can I press you on that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely.
Tell me what it means to find joy in something, in your words. I think I understand what you're saying. I'm not asking to suggest I don't know what you're saying. I'm asking to explore it. What does it mean? What is it like to find joy in the little things?
Like laughing and like smiling and like those are physical reactions that I have that express the joy. But when I'm like sitting in front of the TV watching, like I said, The Bachelor or something, like I'm not on reality TV, and so like imagine like what is that like for them? Like it like's thought provoking too, and like I find joy in that. So those are I guess are like reactions that I can think of that I have that to me describe the joy that I'm experiencing, because I know joy looks differently on people. So I don't know if that maybe addresses that. That's a very specific example of one thing that I can describe of literal reactions that lead to my understanding of joy.
I think a big part of joy is behaviors, is physical. So I take walks as much as I can. I not every minute of every day, but if I can take a walk every day, I'm really happy. If it's somewhere between half an hour and an hour, I've got something in my ears or not, I'm going. I'm just moving around, breathing, having this experience of appreciating how the wind feels on my face. And like I would say an example for me of finding a joy in a little thing is when I'm on a walk and there's birds and rustling leaves in a tree that I'm walking under, like a tree by the road or someone's yard or something, and I'm on a sidewalk, and I just go, wow! There's just like a sense of awe, I guess, or appreciation of beauty. I love that. I really love that.
Well, and I think that adds to the point of like intentionally adding things to your day that bring you joy, right? I mean, like you on a walk. I watch The Bachelor. I watch Vanderpump Rules on Wednesdays. You take a walk the next day. Like it's, if I didn't choose to do that, then I wouldn't be experiencing that joy. So I definitely get what you're saying because I'm choosing to do it.
Or maybe applied to something else. Like you started with, there's a million things that
there are.
Can bring
but you asked for examples. So those are some things that I do personally.
Yeah.
When, feeling joy. I just like the quiet time spent, whether it's myself or with my partner. Like, that's so enjoyable to me.
Some of the most meaningful moments I can think of recently are when I, because we're usually doing something if we're close. Yeah. We're eating, or watching TV, or getting ready to go to bed. But a moment where I'm like holding Gabby, and usually Charlie, our little baby boy, we have a dachshund, Charlie, is close too, and he's cuddled up on like someone's leg, or we're holding him. Like when the people you love are very close that's a super meaningful little moment of joy. Yeah. That I think there's a huge difference in having that in your life and not. What I'm trying to say is I notice a marked difference in my thought patterns, my need for like a little treat, my need for pleasure, like now that I'm in a happy relationship, I don't need a cookie as much. I mean, I like a little cookie, but there's like a baseline need that when it's not there, you find a way to supplement it. And now that I've got
a person
that to love, and my dog, that I love very much. It's like that sort of fills a space that I might have previously been filling. Food is like one example, but I think I mentioned video games. I don't know if I would go so far as to say that I was addicted to video games, but I can think about that. Maybe I was. I was spending a lot of time on it. So I was filling some sort of, like, I noticed that I don't crave that anything else as much now that I have this.
It's interesting, though. A thought I just had based on what you were saying, because I also find that really interesting and agree that is true. But I was just thinking how, because we were at different stages of life, like when these incidents happened and like we reflected on like we found our people and we feel happy and healthy relationships, I mean, like, I was still in school, like, when that happened. So I almost feel like when I got into a happy and healthy relationship, it, like, added to the things I was already doing, not necessarily replacing a need that wasn't being met. I mean, I think there was an emotional need that was not being met that is now being met, but it was added
You're
to
making a clear distinction.
where I felt like my habits didn't necessarily change. It added to my quality of life. And that might be because I wasn't working yet. I just got living in my first apartment. I was still in school. I had a lot of growing still to do. That I wasn't at necessarily a phase where there was something that was taking over, like that emotional need. It is almost like there was a void, and it wasn't being met by a different, like, external source. If I really reflect on it, like, I felt like it was adding to it and
if
filling
I could
its
say,
place.
as your older brother, I've observed and I've always thought that you would like fall in love and have a family. It seemed like that was.
That's always what I've wanted too.
Yeah, we've had a lot of good examples. I mean, I would say.
Just another perspective that I thought of was that maybe the stage of life might also impact that concept.
Say more. What do you mean?
Well, I'm saying, like, because I was in a point in my life where I was still in school. I didn't have, like, I wasn't going to work, coming home, working out, playing video games. My entire routine and structure was different. So when I got into a relationship, it added to it. It didn't necessarily replace or fill something that was being used with something else. Is what I mean.
Sure, and other stages of life. Maybe you and I don't really need to go into it, but we could theoretically comment on what it's like to date in high school or to have crushes as a younger person. And in contrast, we could probably conjecture, but I don't know that you and I could robustly discuss what it would be like to try and find love in your 50s or later in life. Like we have an aunt, one of Grandpa Stanley's sisters, who got married really late in life for a second marriage, I think it was, after her husband passed. Yeah. And that'd be something I'd want to ask them about. What was that like?
And like you said, we can only talk on what we know.
We can conjecture, of course.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the same.
No.
I'd like to ask you another specific question.
Okay.
What is something that you hold as a core value, if you think about values? That has had a positive impact in your life, that has expressed itself really well, and why? What's something that you really value?
I don't think that I knew how to articulate it until I watched Cinderella, the one that came out in like 2015, the live action.
When you say Cinderella, I think of the Brandy version and Whitney Houston.
I mean, that's amazing, but I mean, that was the musical version. This was the live action of the animated film.
It was a live action
with Lily James. You might not have watched it again after your.
I've got a list going. I'm going to write these down. Soul.
And then the live action Cinderella.
I may have seen it, but I don't know if I recall.
But the phrase that her mom uses before she passes away to Cinderella is "have courage and be kind." Mm-hmm. And I feel like something that I've always held dear is seeing like the good in people and approaching situations with kindness and love. And I think that I like to hold myself to that every day, and that's how I communicate with people.
Can you say more about that, how that plays out?
Well, you said like
with effects in your life?
Well, you said like there's a value that I hold dear is like, I guess, like be kind, approach situations with kindness and love. Like when I guess maybe when there are like personal things, professional things, where maybe there could be quarrels, or when you're really working with a student or something, I like to like have like a happy and loving mindset when that person walks into my room, and I continue to maintain that throughout the conversation. And I think when I'm working with students, that offers them like a warm and comfortable environment and gives them the space to like open up in return and like build a relationship with me. I feel like that's the foundation for my relationships, whether it's like professional or personal.
You reminded me of something I don't think I've put online, but I try to pair sometimes graphics with ideas, but like really abstract ideas, not like numerical data on a graph or a pie chart, but just something, a visualization of a concept that's sort of abstract. And one of those was, I think, I would maybe describe, and tell me if this connects or not, the idea of like showing grace to someone on a person to person. the visual I have is like, imagine a bar chart or like a series of bars on a graph, but they're like different heights. It's like there's like a low one and a high one and a medium one and another low one and a high one. Like being kind as a value is when you're like a line across all of those, and then you close the gap. I mean, some people would say meet people where they're at.
That's what I use in my job all the time.
Okay. It's being open to responding to what you hear and see from people on an individual basis, trying to leave as many preconceptions out the door as possible, and meeting people where they're at. Do you think that
definitely describes what I was saying?
Do you think that calling it showing grace or being graceful is fair, or would you not use that language?
I
don't say grace. I don't really mean it in like a religious sense. I mean
I use that phrasing sense. in my field to give grace where grace is needed. Like when I was a GA and I was running a scholarship, when a student told me what they were going through in their personal life, yes, I'm going to give you an extension to submit this reflection paper to me. And knowing the difference when someone wants to walk all over you, which can happen, but like giving grace, meeting people where they're at, that's lingo and actions that I use in my job, and from what I was thinking when I first asked this question, like what I use in my personal life too, when I build relationships with people.
In the last conversation I had, what the answer was respect. Respect was a core value. Respect for... But it played out the same way. So I think my last interviewee used the example of like when you're at the grocery store and you're about to get in line to check out. It's the application of respect for someone and the experience they're having in their life, and which I would characterize as showing grace.
Yeah.
Whereas would you characterize being kind? It all would apply. It would converge at the action of. Saying, "Oh, hey, do you want to go in front of me?
Yeah,
like you don't have as many things as I have." And actually, my mom, she said, sometimes I feel like I can tell with just a look in the face, with eye contact, that like I am doing better maybe than this person seems to be in the moment, and so out of respect for their life, for their their experience, their whatever gives us human dignity. Out of respect, that leads to that kind or gracious action.
That's what I say. Like, being kind, being nice, being gracious. I feel like being respectful.
So, what do you think is the difference between being kind and being respectful? When I talk about values and I see them converge to similar actions, that makes me wonder what.
I think one thing about respect is I do think that's being very respectful. Like in the grocery store example, like this to the stranger that you don't know, and you look at them and you feel like, I think it would be nice if they like went in front of me. That's a version of respect, but I think another version of respect is it having to be earned. You can't just always give it. I mean, you could say that about kindness too. So I maybe categorize it like they all fall under the same umbrella. Of.
Yeah, what's the umbrella?
What's the umbrella? That's a great question.
That's the question.
So I started saying that about respect, and I'm like, no, kindness kind of has to be earned too. It's knowing when to use it, I guess. And not letting it. I wonder if can you be nice to someone and not be respectful, or vice versa?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to go.
Like maybe fine. I don't respect you as a person, but you can go in front of me today. Is that being nice?
I don't think that's coherent. Yeah.
I don't either.
I don't think so.
Oh. Another thought for another day.
Yeah,
I'll think on that
I
more.
want to segue to another question. This could be the penultimate question.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who thinks that they want to make the world a better place? I think that's certainly a set of words that describes something I've thought for a while. We could explore that motivation, but what would you say? What is the first step to making the world a better place for an individual?
You have to start with yourself first. Like when I was talking earlier about like the reflection in order to accept love, I feel like you have to reflect on what you're willing to do to impact yourself and others to make the world a better place. I mean, it starts with you and the actions you take. And then does that impact the next person next to you, who then uses that to influence the person in their life?
So I would bet, and you can tell me if this is true,
Okay.
that in your education, there was some discussion about system level problems.
Yeah.
Systemic racism, systemic sexism. I would say global warming is probably a system level issue.
Yeah.
It's a population. It's a global's in the word.
Yeah.
The term. It's an issue likely beyond the ability to be solved by the actions of one person.
Yeah.
So what? How do you?
But it has
if
to
your
start
advice
with
is,
your action.
this is what I want to
create
explore.
The conversation with the next person, and then go to the person who, whether it's you or somebody else, who can then enact change. Like if you can't just probably go right to the next person who can enact the change. You have to work with yourself and those around you to impact the larger goal. Mm-hmm. That's why what I mean when I start with you is that if you take yourself out of the equation, the thing that you want to happen is never going to happen.
Yeah, we are limited to what
we live in
a
society that's run by money, for example. Like if you want to go and make a change on the other side of the world, you have to get there and be able to live there and continue to live there. And if that's not within someone's means, it's restricted by the system. And that's I guess to a point of when we were talking about that, that's one thing that limits how much global change we can make, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I agree that the line or the conception of it as I want to make the world a better place is just too abstract. It's like it's not actionable. I mean, unless you've got an extreme amount of resources and if you're commanding respect from a large group of other people, maybe you can make change at that level. But I think for most people, it's just not helpful to think in terms of how can I make the world a better place. I think I absolutely agree that it a better conception is thinking about how I can be more capable. Like what can I do? Like what the world is not just every horrible problem. It's my home. It's my friends and family, and so I want to make that point. I don't want to dismiss the concept that our actions have consequences that we don't always see, or that extend, that to the national level or international level. Like there are real awful tragedies going on right now. There are good reasons to worry about serious problems.
Yes.
But I think what's actionable is not conceptualizing it at the level of how can I save the world, but how can I become as capable as possible?
Yeah.
How can I solve bigger problems that cover more time span? I think like a simple problem we all face every day is not dying, not starving.
Yeah.
Like we solve the problem of being hungry by eating. That is a unit problem. That is a trivial problem. I mean, it's not trivial in a dramatic sense. It's certainly like super important. I'm not trying to make some commentary about food scarcity or hunger. I'm just trying to make a point about what individuals are capable of. Like we solve that problem and we live, but then there are problems that are total abstractions from that, and it takes solving the problem of being hungry is sort of obvious because if you don't, you're going to feel the effects of that right away.
Yeah.
But solving system level problems requires collaboration, requires in many cases education or like I want my doctors to be educated. I want my climate scientists to be educated. I want my military strategists to be educated in history and in maybe philosophy or I think that there is something to say about if you want to tackle really important problems, becoming as capable as possible.
Yeah.
I think that is more actionable than the former.
What do you think about the second component to in terms of having actionable steps is, to your point, making my life a better place. Because you were talking about working on yourself and making yourself be the person that can do these things, but then your personal life has to be a better place, a happier place, which just plays in, I think, what you were saying. So I agree with what you said.
Thanks.
Yeah. No, I think it's, well, because to say that, like, I'm single person going to make the world a better place, a world of how many billions of people, it's not actionable, like you said.
And maybe it's a little narcissistic too. I don't know. Why do I know what's best for everybody?
Mm-hmm. That's why
not a question we need, with a good answer.
Star Trek or something.
That's why we need.
I want to know how they got to world peace.
To the Galactic Federation of Planets. Yeah, right.
What led to that, and then like all the rest of the planets that joined in and said, "Yeah, let's be peaceful with each other."
What do you think is less believable, global peace or interstellar travel? What do you think is more of a fantasy?
We've already gone to space, so I guess global peace.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Well, we'll just keep doing our best.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one more question.
Okay.
For this segment. And this will be the most abstract question.
We've been so abstract already.
I know, right? In your words, what is the meaning of life?
I don't know if, do you want like a sentence?
I don't want anything. I want however your attention guides to your answer to the question. That's what's interesting. Okay. So, I mean, I didn't mean to be blunt. If you have a question, I can answer. What do
I view is life?
What do you view as the meaning of life?
Yeah. No, that was me asking myself a rhetorical question. Like, what do I view as what is life? And I feel like, for me, life is finding joy and doing the best that you can with the time that you have. Because life is not infinite. So within these, 90 years of life that I have, hopefully, if not more.
Yeah, if we're lucky, right?
Will I look back and be happy that I was an academic advisor? Or will I be happy that I took the chance on finding love? Life is the culmination of the ideas and choices that we make. Will I look back on this interview and be like, I'm really glad that I had these abstract conversations with my brother. I got to learn new things about him. That's life. I learned more things about you today that I didn't know an hour ago. So it's doing with the time that you have the things that will bring you joy and growth in your life.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's it. I feel like there's so much more I could say on what the meaning of life is, but that was the first thing that stuck to me was that. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Julia Hoelzer.
Thank you.